in. Dr. Judy here, Dr. Judy WTF. What the Freud? What the Freud are we doing repeating things all the time? We don't seem to get off of the merry-go-round. And so the system that I created, the mind map system, is really a pathway to get off the merry-go-round of psychopathology. And tonight we're going to talk about the effects of futility on the psyche and the narcissistic system gone wrong. And why I chose this topic is because you know, the universe always tells you what to talk about, or at least I try to tune into what would be a good topic. And I notice a lot of futility happening in my life, futility signing up for programs that I don't really benefit from, or futilely waiting for people who don't show up, or putting effort into things that don't blossom. And it gets kind of frustrating. So start this off with the story of Sisyphus, who was a Greek mythological figure. And what he did was he rolled this huge boulder up the hill. However, every time he rolled it up the hill, it would slide back a little bit and he would not progress at all. And this is the metaphor that I'm using tonight to describe the effects of futility on the psyche. Can you imagine spending your whole life just trying to push this boulder up the hill only to have it roll back at you? And this is a theme that permeates our cultural metaphors as well. For example, Pharaoh, the story of Passover, which is coming up, where the Jews had to carry pyramids, stones, building, and they built for the Egyptians, of course, and it was futile for them because they didn't get anything out of it, and they just kept building and building for not themselves, basically. So why I tie it to the narcissistic system is because when you build for a narcissist, you're really building for them, and you're left out of the formula because you are at their service. So this is a call-in show, everyone. And please feel free to call in. And that number is 323 524 2599. And I welcome calls. And I'm just telling you heads up that if you're off topic, I'm going to um, ask you to get off the call because the purpose of the show is for it to be points made around the topic that I select and not just a venting session for you to call in and air your life story. That really doesn't serve the audience, and I'm here to serve the audience and not just one single person. So with that said, I do love for you to call in, and please do, and we could talk about futility. So let's start with the mind map and childhood injuries. And one of the things I think I don't talk enough about is the wound of futility, where the child does things and doesn't really get anything out of it, sort of like the maid of the parent, for example. So if you look at the mind map, it's laid out in 3 rows: wounds of childhood, how we react, what we encode in our psyche about the wounds of childhood, and then how that gets tripped up, kind of like a lever, and then takes us down into chaos, which is everything unraveling and everything sort of going wrong, and a lot of darkness, a lot of confusion, not feeling that you have much direction in life. You could see the little people flying off into the ozone and really no structure. And then what do we do when we are in chaos is we defend ourselves. So in panel 5, you could see little bubbles of defense mechanisms, and these bubbles represent all kinds of defense mechanism like shutting down or doing drugs or sleeping too much or smoking cigarettes or anything of that sort where people don't want to face the pain. And so they hide behind a defense mechanism, which on some level protects you temporarily. However, on a bigger level, it locks you into a kind of a psychological prison that you then have a hard time getting out of and freed from. So if you find yourself in panel 5 and there is no progress, then that is your way of attempting to protect yourself. However, it's not really protection because it's stagnation, which ties back to the theme, futility. So actually, defense mechanisms are a form of futility if you look at it that way. Now, when we have had enough of our futility, when our life is going nowhere, literally, so when we are just lost and unproductive and stagnant, um, and that doesn't work, sometimes what happens to our life is that we break down. And when we break down, we oftentimes have an opportunity. I call it the curse by design, which is an opportunity to break down and utilize it as a breakthrough. What does it take to utilize something as a breakthrough after breakdown? I think is desire, motivation, and wisdom. So, how do you take something that has basically toppled you over and turn it into something good? I think some thoughts, some desire, a lot of wisdom, and some sort of a desire to make a difference in your own life and in the lives of other people. So breakdowns are really opportunities for breakthroughs, which are the opposite of futility. So when you're futile, it's sort of like that merry-go-round or the rat going round and round and round in the maze and nothing happens. So let's think of examples of futility. Well, for one, signing up for programs that are not going to get you anywhere. For example, you sign up for a class, or you sign up for some medical advice, or you sign up for some kind of any kind of program, and you have a lot of optimism about it. And at the end of the journey, you've learned nothing, no wisdom, no paradigm shifts, no change, no change. So you've just been through this huge exercise of futility. Now, that could be obviously very frustrating because you've put your hopes into it, you put your dreams into it, you have projected optimism into whatever process that you've enrolled yourself into, and then nothing at all. Um, I oftentimes refer to talk therapy, psychotherapy, which just involves talking and no real system, as a futile process. In some cases, it's some sort of a relief for people just to vent or to air their thoughts. But a lot of times, people want to gain something out of a process, and so you have to understand what is the structure of the process, what's the intention of what you're embarking on, and you want to know all of that before you put your interest and your energy. Now, obviously, a big area of futility that people come up against is the futility of relationships, which are all around you. So, investing in a friendship, investing in a new relationship that you think is going to be something of value for you long term, because it's stupid to invest in something that has a short shelf life unless you like that kind of thing. A lot of changes and destabilizing your life. I don't personally like it, but some of you might like a lot of change. So how do you know that you're not investing in a futile relationship? Well, that ties to part 2 of my title, which is the narcissistic system. So, being that I specialize in narcissism, uh, one of the major aspects of futility is signing up to be in a relationship with a narcissist. and that is going to be a very futile endeavor. It's going to be worse than a futile endeavor because at least a futile endeavor doesn't leave you gutted. Well, it could, I suppose, but in the hopes and dreams of having a long-term outcome with somebody that you might not even know is a narcissist, you sure put a lot of hope into it. You sure project a lot of future wonderful outcomes and maybe time, money, sexual attraction, introducing this person to your family, um, time invested in helping them problem solve or being there when they're down and so on. And maybe you might get a little bit of that back. However, formulaically, it's very one-sided. So who's putting in is you, and who's getting out of it is mostly the other person. And the problem usually lies in the fact that you're putting in order to build something in the relationship, and they're putting in to gain favors, more and more favors, called love bombing from you. And then you think that, like tied to the last episode I did on the carrot, the narcissistic carrot, well, that's a form of futility because you keep working so hard for these people and nothing comes of it because their intention is different. So let's go back to panel one for a moment. And by the way, for those of you who have not yet read my book, Be the Cause Healing Human Disconnect, it is available on Amazon in paperback. And if you really, really want a PDF of it, you can ask for one and it'll be sent to you. And I think everybody should read it because it's the outline of the mind map system, and it'll give you a kind of like what you see in the book cover, a connect the dots pathway. So if you look at the narcissistic system, you can see that in panel one, the wound, I'll just call it a kind of a new wound that I don't really refer to much, the wound of futility. How does that begin? Well, begins with a narcissistic parent and you're trying to please and please and please. And what happens is that you end up enslaving yourself to their agenda, to their hobbies, to their philosophies, to their anything. So I don't know if any of you have been a maid to your parents or some sort of a servant or mommy's little helper or daddy's little helper. Some of that is great because we're supposed to be responsible in the family. We're supposed to contribute. It's just that there comes a point where it's not really balanced and you might actually feel like you're being used as opposed to a contribution to the family. So when that happens, what's stolen from you is a sense of purpose and accomplishment. So, in the short run, you think that you have purpose and accomplishment because they might give you a little pat on the head saying, good job. However, the meaningfulness of it is never really rewarded because the meaningfulness is eaten up by the parents. It's meaningful for them, but not quite for you. So, one of the things about panel one that I talk about in my book is that consciousness, the state of your consciousness, is causal. So, if you're in a consciousness of taking, it's going to yield one type of result, usually a futile result for the other person. And if you're in the consciousness of only giving, then you're going to be a people pleaser and you're going to be serving your narcissistic parent or narcissistic next person in your life. I see there's a question, so please go ahead.
Yes, this question is Every time I try to get help for myself, something horrific happens. I let my guard down from the person telling me to let my guard down, and they ripped my heart out every time. Makes it hard to heal. Often, I leave professional people that tried to help me more messed up than when I came to them because they misused and abused the power they had over me. How do I fix that?
Wow, that's a harsh one. Okay, so it's happening even with professional people that you entrust your mental health with. Is that what I'm getting out of it? I think, Tony, yeah? Is
That's what
that
it
the
looks like, yeah.
Yeah, and also in personal relationships. Okay, so being that I'm really a detailed examiner of the cause or the blueprint behind this, I wish you would call because I'd like to ask you what your wounds of childhood were like and if you were used, abused, and broken trust with your parents, if you felt that you were the people pleaser and they were the people taking from you, then you're probably doing what I call a what the Freud or repeat pattern of your past. So, how do we avoid futility? I believe that things are earned. So, if you start with a professional, this actually happened to me recently where I dumped um, a lot of belief into a professional and put a lot of money into something that I thought was going to be very helpful. And I came out the other end really angry at their manners and their treatment of me, and really, really angry at the fact that I don't really feel all that much better, after all the time and investment, and really angry about the lack of care and follow up. Well, you'd think that I'd know better, but based on the fact that they seem to have a lot of good credentials, I thought, well, maybe it's not important how their bedside manner is. But you know what? It is important because I should have remembered that if they're showing up in an uncaring manner, then ultimately they are not healers. So, in terms of working with professionals, proceed with caution. And I always ask people to have a consultation with the person before they sign on. And this is the opportunity to make sure that your treatment is not futile, that there's an actual plan, and that you are heard and understood, and that the budget fits your budget, and that you and the person that you're about to sign up with feels like a good fit, and that even though that person might be challenging to you, there's a right way to challenge somebody and a wrong way to challenge. And obviously, the wrong way to challenge is to demean, devalue, destroy, ignore them. That's not the right way. And so, if that was your blueprint, if you had a childhood of being ignored and demeaned and devalued, and um, if you have a core belief that you don't really matter, it's not uncommon that you're going to keep signing up for people that are going to reinforce um, your negative core belief. And if you'd like to continue the conversation, please do call in so that I can be more specific about this. Um, but it's a nasty feeling, isn't it, when you put your hands into the trust of a professional and they don't pan out the way that you imagined. Also, I want to make sure that you all understand the concept of positive projection. So, um, what is positive projection? When you go to a professional, whether it be a psychologist or an MD or a healer or whoever that might be, or maybe it's a life coach or somebody of that sort, and they talk a good game, and so you project on them all kinds of positive qualities, and you see their diplomas hanging on the wall, and you get a sense that they're educated people, but yet there's something missing there, which usually is that they just don't really care, that they're going to put minimal effort into maximal results, which means that they're going to put minimal treatment and get maximal dollars out of you. And usually it's not a fair exchange. Um, no problem with getting your money's worth, even if you have to pay for it. However, there is a problem when you have your money invested in somebody and they don't give you their everything. So please make sure that your expectations of the professional are properly questioned and discussed so that you can be on the same page, because you can't be expecting something that um, they actually can't deliver. So you want to ask a lot of questions. You want to have them specifically um, tailor their conversation to what you can expect. When people come in to see me, they say, well, what can I expect out of this? And my answer to that is you can expect to see where your childhood wounds emanate from, how you react to them, what kind of horrible core beliefs you believed in that turned into lies that ruined your life, and how to dismantle these lies so that you can be freed from the what the Freud system. Follow-up question. Sure, go ahead. I'd rather talk to you, but okay, we'll talk this way. It's fine.
All right. This person actually let us know that they're not able to call in, but they're being very active in the chat. So they asked, because I was abused, I manifest people that abused me.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and that was where I was going with this conversation. I'm not surprised. So in your case, please, it costs you really nothing to get my book. It's zero money. You just request it. If you want to get the video healing from narcissistic abuse, I think it's a really good investment. You can find it on my website, psychologicalhealingcenter.com. It's a journey inward, and you can take it without spending money on a therapist if you're not having a very strong income right now. And the main gist of it is that you've got to unravel the pattern, because you're going to repeat it with everybody. You're going to sign up with professionals that are going to use you and milk you. You're going to sign up for relationships that are going to use you and milk you. And that is really the definition of um, futility, isn't it? Um, One of the reasons I do what I do is because I love to have meaning in my life. And if I don't have meaning in my life, I myself feel futile. Okay. So if I were, for example, working at a job that didn't help me express my meaning, I would just feel like a cog in the wheel, which is okay if it brings home a paycheck and feeds my family and serves me to a certain degree. But if I'm looking for a, a vocation that's going to nourish me and not be futile, because it's something that obviously you do every day of your life, you want to, if you can, keep your day job if you need it, and then create something that's your passion that you can um, integrate into your goals and your sense of meaning, and then find your own light to make yourself and the world a better place. That would be the opposite of futility. So, for those of you who are involved in futile relationships, futile um, programs, futile jobs, futile anything, please look to your wounds of childhood and ask yourself, did my parents reward and nourish me for who I am? Or did they milk me dry because of what they needed from me? So you could see one is coming from the consciousness of sharing and caring and wanting to develop your children, and the other is coming from the consciousness of bleeding your children dry of their ideas, their resources, their services, and so on, reminding me of a patient I had many, many years ago who was such a brilliant person and so well put together with a beautiful family and a beautiful career. And yet his core belief is that he was worthless and he was better off dead. I might have used him as an example before, and it was astounding to me because truly he was super educated, very good looking, in great physical shape, had a wonderful wife and a little daughter. And it was amazing that that person had this hidden, very negative, suicidal core belief that made him feel absolutely worthless. And so, in exploring this, we looked at his life and the patterns, and it's not like anybody hit him or name called him or anything, but really it boiled down to he was a human doing. So he got no reinforcement, no nourishment for him being a human being, a child, a baby. It was all about tasks: mow the lawn, clean the house, take out the garbage, do this, do that. So he was a human doing. And unless he was doing and performing, he felt like a nothing or nobody. And if he failed the doings and the performances, of course, he felt extremely worthless and suicidal. So anyway, we had to untangle that entire mess and bring him back to a sense of meaning and being and worthwhileness. And this is such a very, very important topic. We cannot live life in a futile manner. Sometimes we do things that are futile, like certainly I play on my computer, pretty futile and mindless. I think we all go into mindless states every now and then, or just um, do things that are not particularly productive. But if that's all you do, it's going to really bring on a great sense of heaviness and depression and worthlessness and futility. And when life starts lacking meaning, then um, we don't get up in the morning. We have no more desire. And one of the most important things that we can have in life is a sense of desire, because desire is what is sparking us to get up in the morning. It is sparking us to manifest our ideas. It's sparking us to take care of people that we love. It's sparking us to get together with people that we love. It's sparking creativity. It's the main ingredient in being the cause. We have to have some kind of desire. So if we don't have desire and we have futility, it's just nothing and no man's land. And nothing comes out of this kind of infertile soil, so to speak. Any questions in the chat room or any concepts that you want to delve into deeper, or does somebody want to call in and we can discuss this further? So let's go back to panel one and look at the darkness overshadowing our light. So our light is a metaphor for desire, for self-expression, and the darkness is shadowing over our light. And as much as we struggle, the joy is taken away from us, the motivation is taken away from us or snuffed out. Everything is trying to get snuffed out. Our light is trying to get snuffed out. And so when we're in that state, we feel futile. Um, so there was a book written as a result of a psychiatrist's experience during the Holocaust, and his name was Viktor Frankl, and he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. Can you imagine being in the Holocaust and you have no power, and everybody around you is being gassed to death, shot to death, dying of diseases? You don't know if you're going to be next, and that is your existence. And so what he started doing was search for meaning. So how he did that was I'm not I'm not sure exactly how he did that, but he had this idea that the circumstances around him were not going to rule his world, but he was going to make meaning of his life, whatever it was. And through a desire for this meaning, he had the will to live. And the meaning might have been as simple as helping somebody stay warm. And, and as a result of that, helping somebody stay warm while everybody else was freezing, he stayed warm also. It might have been a very simple thing like um, helping somebody in the camps deal with their psychological freak out and distress and trauma. So a lot of times I personally feel that when I put myself in situations where I can be meaningful to other people, I derive a lot of meaning for myself. And so it lights up my light, so to speak. So, what's a reaction? I'm on to panel two now. What's a reaction to futility, meaninglessness, cracks us up? You could see panel two, all the broken and shattered glass. So, if we don't feel like we matter, if we don't feel significant, we crack up. And instead of um, integrating, we shatter, and our psyche shatters, and there's no focal point. It cracks our lens of perception, the way we see the world, and even to the point where we have false hope, hope that, like what you brought up earlier, hope that people can help us, but they can, but the wrong people will be futile. Okay. So if you've been in a feudal system, you're probably signing up for feudal systems. That must be the most horrific punishment to be in a feudal situation. And so when, for example, one of the most cruel punishments in the prison system is solitary confinement. And in solitary confinement, you know that there's no interaction with other human beings, and we're built to be um, interconnected. And so when there's no interconnection, there's no um, sense of purpose and meaning. And then we start slowly dying on the vine. We start shutting down our creativity. We start shutting down our desire. We go inward. We go into dark places in our mind that shut out everybody. And even if we get out of these horrific situations, we're traumatized by them. And it takes a long time to reconnect to society, to humans, and have a spark of hope and a spark of, of, of desire and meaning. And so you could see how quickly futility can um, overtake us. Any other thoughts or questions in the chat room about futility and really how it is such a bleak state to be in a futile state
We
is a
do
bleak.
have another question. Um, the question is, an individual tells another individual that something only means something to you because you have nothing and no one. When someone says that to me, what does it mean? What are their intentions? Is it helpful?
If somebody says to you that they have nothing and no one and you're the only one in their life, like that,
It looks more like a belittling statement, like a bullying statement. Like somebody tells you that something in your life only means something to you because you have nothing and nobody else.
so like a threat, like they better be somebody to you, kind of like a manipulation. I guess I'm not getting the
I'm not
gist of the
sure. Maybe
question.
our yes, yes. They
So
said
they're
yes.
manipulating you to, they're putting a lot on you, yeah? So they can derive meaning from your existence, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so I would say that, wouldn't you say that's pretty manipulative? That's a lot of pressure on one single person, isn't it? Like, you better give me meaning. You better be a person that I live for, or you better. There's a you better behind it, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of like a hostage situation to me, you know? So you don't want to entangle with yourself with a person that um, doesn't demand that you bring something to the table. So that's sort of a little description of narcissism right there, isn't it? That you better bring it or else I'm not going to be happy. But, flip it around. What is the other person bringing to the relationship? Because relationships are meant to be synergistic. Of course, sometimes one person is very, very down and out, and the other person is there to pick them up. But in general, there's a give and take. So if somebody's not doing well, the other one kicks in, and then sometimes the other one is not doing well, and then the other partner kicks in. But generally, what is generative, which is again the opposite of futility, is one feeding the other. They're both feeding each other. So if the pressure is just on one to give them meaning, and you better make me feel good, you better be there for me, it's just a one-sided vampire vampiring relationship.
We actually got some clarification on that question. This individual says, no, it's a hurtful statement saying that you have nothing and no one, so when I take you out for lunch, it means more to you than it does to me.
Oh my goodness, I wouldn't give that person the time of day. Really, that's a demean, devalue, destroy. That means that if you go out for lunch, you're basically their bitch, right? Like, you're supposed to kiss their hand for even taking a low life like you out. I mean, so part of what I try to tell people is that your participation in this is half the problem, or maybe the full problem. So if you find that people are treating you like this, you've got to turn to yourself and ask yourself, how am I being causal? So if you accept such an invitation, what exactly are you doing here? Okay? You're basically saying it's okay if you demean, devalue, and destroy me. It's okay if you think of me as this poor little I don't know, decrepit person that's so needy, and you're such a big person as to waste your time on me to give me a better moment or meal. Like, the statement is, aren't you lucky to have me in your life? What a horrible system that is. It's just not a good, not a good situation. So what you want to do is get away from that. Build yourself up so that you feel like you're something to yourself and enough to share so that people engage with you because they're getting value out of you and you're getting value out of them. And there's something that's growth producing, because this is a feudal situation. You're supposed to be the downtrodden and appreciative of the charitable person that's giving you the lunch, buying you the lunch, giving you the attention. Now, if you want to do charity to people who are lonely, that's a different story, but you don't go in there telling them that, aren't you lucky that I'm here to spend time with you? Aren't you lucky that a worthless person like you is going to take some of my attention, and that I'm going to spend money on you for lunch. I mean, it's so degrading. Can you hear the degrading quality to this dynamics? You could just put a yes or no in the chat room, since we're chatting it up in the chat room.
They said yes, they can, and they also said thank you.
So you're welcome. And so the do the right thing to do here is you give yourself meaning and you don't sign up for people that make you feel meaningless, because just the way you described it, ugh, how pathetic. Like, I would never go out with a person that talked to me like that. Even if I were starving, I'd rather just sit home and make myself some food and sit there alone, because there's a point at which you might be so lonely or hungry or whatever you're hungry for, but if you allow yourself to be, quote, fed by somebody who's demeaning and devaluing and destroying you, not only are you going to feel worse, you're going to feel like all of your core beliefs are being activated, especially the you're not good enough, you're not lovable, you're not meaningful, you're not important. So, you might get a belly full of food, but you're going to also get a head full of horrible activations of core beliefs that are going to shatter you and then leave you in chaos. You'll probably end up leaving that lunch feeling like you've got to do something to defend yourself, and you might go home and just shut down and go to sleep, or eat more potato chips, or drink alcohol, or smoke more cigarettes, or something. So do you see how this doesn't really serve you? You might be served for a moment, but you've got to also own your own reasons why you're engaging with such a person. Is it really worth the lunch? Is it really worth the two seconds of attention, or quality attention, demeaning attention that this person gives you? And if you were to source it back to the cause, is that how your parents treated you? Did they make you feel like you should be lucky to even be in their company? You should be lucky to even get a little bit of their attention. You should feel lucky, meaning that you're not meaningful, okay, and not significant to them. So I think I should put more emphasis on the people that feel like victims of these situations, and um, help them to remember that they're victims because they're participants in the system. How's that to hold you responsible? Because ultimately, we're responsible for ourselves. And if we're crying about how people screw us over or treat us like dirt or anything, um, we've got to look at our participation in this. And even more importantly, we have to look at the blueprint of how we were raised and wounded to know why we sign up for these kinds of narcissistically horrible deals, because that's what they are. And they are futile because there's nothing good that generates. There's no light in that lunch. There's no light in that friendship. It's only you. Instead of getting, I did a show on this called Fulfillment versus Fulfillment. You guys should watch that one. You might feel full from the lunch, but you're not going to feel fulfilled because that person is there to step on you and make you feel worse. And that's what narcissists do. They step on you, make you feel worse, make you feel beholden to them in order to feel better. And this is not a synergistic relationship. This is a one-upsmanship relationship. So when we talk about what is a more healthy relationship, let's go to panel number 7, which is what I use as my logo. So go to 7 and you'll see a bunch of bubbles and, sorry, sneeze coming and not coming out. Okay, so those bubbles are meant to be a model for synergy. So it's a model of 1 plus 1 is greater than 2, not less than you. So if you walk in there downtrodden, victimy, and sad, depressed, hungry, tired, lonely, and then you get with a person that's going to use you to make themselves feel better, that would be the vampiring effect. If you're with somebody that is truly there to um, be a friend, to be a partner, to hold you responsible. Sometimes people think friendships are people who just pat you on the back and make you feel better and buy you lunch and listen to your sob stories and let you go on and on with meaninglessness. A true friend is going to confront you and say, wait a minute, you're way out of line. That's not okay. I could see why your life is this way because you're not investing in your health, or you're not investing in your spiritual growth, or you're not investing in your psychological growth. I think good friends are truth tellers. And I think at the core of this process of the mind map, that light represents the truth. And when you tell the truth, even if it doesn't sound pretty or kind, um, the truth really will shine light. You need to know the truth, and true friends say the truth. Hopefully, they say it in a way that's digestible enough. And I created what's called a peaceful healing dialogue, which is in my book. You can also get it off my website, psychologicalhealingcenter.com. And we have a caller. So thank you so much for calling in. We have a few minutes to talk. Hi.
Hi,
Hi, are you able to hear me properly?
I am. Are you able to hear me properly?
Yeah, thank you so much for calling in. And what inspired you to make the call?
Well, I used to tune into this regularly, and then I drifted away for a while, and it popped up, and I listened to you talk about the verbal way that this happens. But I was wondering about the nonverbal way of um, expressing the same lack of interest, value, connection by silence and by little things like not being interested in you. Not that you need interest, but as a couple being unable to develop anything together, a shared likeness to grow in together. Uh,
That's a great
um,
question.
Giving a gift, for example, a birthday gift, and when you say you don't like the color, typically exchange it for the one you want. They never will exchange it. They just, you never get the gift. So these kinds of little things, when you say you need help, you want to do something and you need help, and they say, "Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, yeah." But then they never follow through and help. Um, Not recognizing when you're going through something extremely difficult emotionally, simply ignoring your experience and as you have it alongside them. This seems to be some of the same sort of thing, but a different delivery of the message.
I think it's a
Am I
great,
right or wrong?
yeah, you're right. Because when somebody
Okay.
marginalizes you, then you feel
Yeah.
unimportant, which is that you feel futile to them, like you don't matter, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so part of a relationship is giving importance to the person. And we're all guilty of being on our cell phone when we're in a social setting where we should really just be eye to eye contact. We're losing it. Eye to eye, skin to skin, the stuff that babies need. We need mirroring,
Hmm.
attunement. You're talking about non-mirroring. You get a present, that's nice, right? But then you say, I don't like the color, which is the truth. And then the person, if they're going to pick up on your cue, will say, no big deal. Let me go back and see if they have it in other colors. Or if they don't feel like going back, they could say, look, I bought it at such and such store. Why don't you see if they have it in another color and we'll just do an exchange. There's got to be some sort of a reciprocity, not just like, sorry, wrong color, okay? Or sorry, don't have time for you. There's a couple, John and Julie Gottman. They are very famous couples therapists who have treated literally, I don't know, thousands and thousands of couples, and they have a concept called bidding. And bidding is when one person seeks the attention of the other, and then the other person just drops the ball. Okay, so they're not just, they're not
Ah,
playing tennis back and forth. They're just letting the ball, bounce and bounce out. And you're right. I see this with my dog. I feel horribly guilty when my dog brings me the ball and I have to go somewhere, and then, I could just look at, tears my heart out personally. I'll throw the ball to her once or twice, and then like, where are you going? And then, oh my God,
yeah,
so there's got to be something in us that's got to feel bad when we're not able to bounce the ball. But if you're in a relationship and there's no response to your bidding, that is a huge, huge predictor of divorce. And
yeah,
it's as
makes
easy,
sense.
right? Doesn't that make sense? So if you say, "Oh my God, look at the sunset," and your partner, your husband, wife says, "Yeah, whatever," and then you're at a
Hmm.
museum, right? And you're at a museum, you say, "Oh my God, look at the colors and the shapes and the fine, fine artistry of this painting." And the person says, I'm bored, let's go. Right? So, you know,
Yeah.
disconnect.
I think it's interesting that you made the tennis reference because when discussing this topic, I had mentioned how it's kind of like with someone else. I had mentioned it's kind of like playing tennis against the backboard, but not the backboard is made of Velcro and the tennis ball just sticks.
Oh my
It
God,
never
that's
comes back.
so good.
And so you referenced tennis too. And anyway, I forgot something else, but that was a good reference. And this other thing is that in the end, there's no energy exchange, right? It's like constantly trying to get a wave going and each side, contributing and passing the energy back and forth and it developing and getting momentum and growing into something. It's like
Yes.
there's no energy exchange. So one person gets exhausted constantly trying to get the other to activate, and the other just looks at the activation drop on the floor. And so the one gets exhausted, and eventually, hopefully, they figure it out. I mean, and you
Yeah.
realize what you're doing to yourself by continuing to throw the ball to the dog that's never going to bring it back. They just look at it. Nobody ever taught them that a ball is something you chase and bring back. It's like playing with a ball with a cat, maybe.
And that's the definition of
Um,
utility. You throw the ball and the person just lets the ball lie there, or
mhm.
you start a conversation. And I have some pet peeve statements. I hate people who say um whatever, like I might say something and they'll say whatever, and that's just such an offensive statement to me. Just, it's sort of like chalk on a
Yeah,
blackboard, you know? It's an
yeah.
ultimate blow off. It's just, like, okay,
Well,
whatever.
I don't know. Is that the ultimate blow off, or is it when they pretend, they feign interest, they go, "Oh yeah," and then they don't. There's no pickup of the conversation.
That that
It's almost like an pointed. I'm purposefully doing this. Like, do you see that I'm not doing it? I don't know. There's something about the fake response that leads to nothing rather than the blow off. At least the blow off is honest. So whatever, you're like, okay, I get the point. But when they fake it, that they're interested, but then it just never goes anywhere, that's, I think, a little more dark somehow.
I love that you said that, because it's the first one is so obvious, like whatever, but that one is even more offensive. You're right, because
Yeah.
they let you go on and on and on, and you think that they're actually interested, and they're just blowing smoke. They're just entertaining you saying things to them that they don't really care about. And that, you're right, that
Till you get tired and go away
till you get
and
tired.
leave them to go onto their device or do whatever else they wanted to focus on the whole time. But they're just tolerating your presence for a while. Like it's the silent version. I think I prefer the overt. I mean, one than the covert version of this whole thing.
Hmm. I think that's
Yeah.
a really great example. And you know, either one makes you feel sort of futile if you go on and on and on and you think that you're getting somewhere in the conversation and it's not generating into anything and you feel fooled that they were interested, but they really weren't. That's a blow off. No question about it.
Yeah.
That's again, this topic is about futility. There's so many forms of futility, futile conversations, futile investments in relationship. The one that I did last week on the narcissistic carrot is the futility of being with a narcissist who makes fake promises. Yeah, we'll be married. Yeah, I do love you. Yeah, I'm committed to you. And it's all fake. It's just
Yeah,
to
I'm going to go on that vacation. We're going to go on that vacation. Yeah, we're going to take that trip that, eventually I'll take a vacation from working and we'll go do something together that's meaningful to you. No, those don't happen either.
right, but yeah, just to say that you will and then not do it. That's the torture. That's the futility. And so if you find yourself in relationships like that, again, I want to emphasize the participation of the person because they need to stop reinforcing the system gone wrong. If it's a narcissistic system and they keep getting blown off, ignored, or fakely entertained into thinking that they're meaningful and then finding out that they're really not, it's time to reevaluate your investment, whether it's emotional investment, physical investment in helping, financial investment, sexual investment, any kind
Hmm.
of investment, right? You don't want to invest in dead end. You don't want to invest in futility. It's very exhausting, especially when you spend years and years of the dangling carrot in front of your nose and you think, yeah, sure, the person will finally cave in. And even if they cave in, what kind of relationship is it that you have to wait 8 years or, 4 years or I don't know in order to get somebody to commit to you? That's sort of a, I don't know, red flag to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And your mind map system was very, when I'm sure you've developed it since I last saw it a couple of years ago, but it was extremely helpful um, for helping those people that are from a system that creates the person that's going to be engaged in this cycle. And, so figuring out how your own wounds end up uh, playing out in these relationships, in these different business, personal, whatever it is. Um, so
Yeah,
anyway,
always
that was very helpful.
blueprint. Go to the blueprint and connect the dots, and then you'll see a big picture of why you're engaged in the system gone wrong. And once you get it, and you can own the fact that you're trying to do a what the Freud or a repeat of your past, then you could say, no thanks, because the WTF is the meaning of true futility. You're just going around and around and nothing, nothing is generating out of it. It's just the same old, getting you nowhere.
Dr. Judy, have you heard of cold therapy,
Cold, where
which
you
is
get cold
um,
water?
no, where you get re-exposed to the trauma that you had, but this time it's in a safe environment and you process it with someone so that it's something for some personality disorders that I've read about. I just wondered if sometimes I wonder if we're doing that to ourselves by getting ourselves into these relationships or just trying to work it out. Eventually the pain becomes so great that we will reach for help, but how many times do we have to go through the relationship or how long do we stay
Well,
before we get there?
so that's a great way. Cold therapy, that's a nice description because it's cold, right? It doesn't really generate warmth. So cold therapy is something that the way you describe it is included in the mind map process because in the mind map process we have what I call truth conversations where we replay the trauma, and the person, I get to be the person that is actively involved in the conversation of the woundings, and then the person can actually push back and express all the repressed anger and hurt and resentment. So I think it's
Mm. Okay.
a pivotal point in my therapy for sure.
Oh,
And
cool. I didn't know that.
yeah, it really is. It's a very important. It's panel 6 actually, break down, break through. And so why it doesn't work with other relationships is because they're not doing it to be therapeutic. They're just doing it to re-injure you. Okay. And I see we're totally out of
Hmm.
time. But I really appreciate your call. You
Okay.
make awesome points. And I want to just reiterate to everybody, whatever is happening to you, if you don't like it and if it doesn't feel sane and safe and progressive, then don't be victim, get out. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much for calling in and thank you everyone for listening. Good night, everybody.
Thanks for doing these shows faithfully, Dr. Judy.
You're very welcome.
Take care.